How's it going, YouTube? Jamie the Kid 00 here, coming to you guys with another kind of talky video. I haven't done one of these in a while. I hear that you American folks have a sealed play YCS coming up, and I know a lot of you kind of jested at us Europeans, saying, you guys got lumbered with a sealed play YCS. Well, guess what? Now it's your turn. Now it's your turn. So because no one did it for us, I figured I'm going to be the better man, because I'm the better man. Let's face it. And I figured I'd do a video on how to top YCS San Diego. Now, I can't really talk that much about how to top sealed events because I didn't top. I lost on the bubble of day 1 and round 7. I believe it was round 7? Yeah. I lost in round 7 and that put me out of day 2, sadly, because it put me on X3. But having played it, having realised where I went wrong, the mistakes I made, and having heard from better players who did top, and how they kind of found their secret to success, I feel I can reasonably construct an argument on how you're going to do well at the event. So, I mean, you may not be able to see it yourselves, but I've literally compiled a little list on my laptop, which is a bit horribly glared over. Kind of things to talk about, and I'm basically just going to jot through that and tell you guys what I've come up with, and hopefully it will help you if you're attending the YCS or if you're attending sealed play events of your own at your locals, because the same things will apply. Okay, so the first and fundamental thing to remember is going into the event, it is sealed. Any prior constructed testing you have made, throw it out, because it's not going to matter. You really should throw away everything you know about the current metagame at the moment, because that will only hinder you. If you're going to set stuff and you're afraid they're going to kill it with Megalo, or you're afraid they're going to kill it with MST, you should probably be throwing those ideas out, because of course MST is in set, but it's going to be a lot more scarce. So remember, it is a sealed environment. The meta is nothing like what you have been prepared for. However, does sealed mean it's random? No, sealed does not mean that the kind of meta is a random meta, and it's something you shouldn't really think about. I believe Vexicus4666 constructed a conversation on Facebook earlier on today, and he was saying, people, what do you think we need to do to top the YCS? Do you need to practice, or do you need to throw it, or do you just need to wing it? And a lot of people were going into the thread saying wing it, and I really do not agree with that. A lot of people were saying, oh, just wing it, it's sealed play, it doesn't matter. The skilled players will do better, etc., etc. And I really disagree with that fact. It's saying wing it is really not the best way to go into it. Having heard from players who top the YCS, and having watched an interview with Peter Gross, the winner of the YCS, that a friend of mine did, he said that all he did before the event was practice under the sealed environment and play under the sealed set. Now, I'd like to think that that kind of impacted his likelihood of topping, and a lot of the other people who topped had been playing sealed practice. 3 members of the locals that I have attended a couple of times in Bristol said that they'd been playing sealed pack events week after week after week up until the event, and 3 of them out of, I think, the 5 who went topped. So something tells me winging it really isn't the best way to do it. See, now, sealed packs are a set. It's like a sneak peek, or like, say, Magic the Gathering, where the sets rotate out. They generate their own meta. So in light of what is available in that meta, you kind of have to try and gauge what you're going to be going up against. Of course, you're not going to be going up against archetypes like Mermails, Firefist, Frog Monarch, etc. What you are going to be going up against are decks with access to certain cards. And there's going to be some cards are going to be more likely than others. So the first thing you want to kind of examine going into the event is, what are you going to be going up against? Because, of course, not really knowing what your opponent has, you kind of need to assume they have everything. So before you're going to be making your plays and you're sitting in your game and you're wondering what your opponent has in their hand, you need to be aware of what is in the set, the entirety of the set. You need to know how many kind of bounce effects, how many spin effects, how many remove from play effects your opponent is going to have access to, and you also want to try and find out the likelihood that they're going to have it. Because, of course, some of the cards in the set are rare, some of them are not. Of course, if you look at all the commons, you work out how many of those commons have certain effects, and it's more likely your opponent is going to have those. If you're really fearing an effect that's held by a rare monster, like a Caius or a Riser, you may kind of have to discount that fact at, yeah, it was a rare and they only had access to 10 packs, so is it really likely that they pull that rare? I mean, of course, all of this stuff that I'm saying is probability based. There is still the 1 in 100 chance that your opponent will drop that Caius on you, but you want to make educated guesses going into this environment. It's kind of like playing Cardfight Vanguard. You really want to make educated guesses because ultimately your opponent can have the chance card. And I mean, it's like in Yu-Gi-Oh situations. Your opponent could have the one card out. You have to make that kind of gamble and you have to make that educated guess based on what the resources you have access to. So in light of that, review the set. I haven't really done it before this video, so I'm not going to be giving you any examples. This is literally just me giving you guidelines. Review the set, work out what are the rares, and then remember that the rares are things you don't have to necessarily worry about until, say, the game 2 when you've seen it. You also kind of want to examine the commons and things like that for how many easy boss monster drops there are, how many monsters there are that they can Cyber Dragon out, because I mean Cyber Dragon is in the set. How many monsters they can special summon out and then drop a Monarch over it or a Tribute Summonable Monster over it, and how many Tribute Summonable Monsters there are in common. And I kind of examine the rares, but really focus on the common Tribute Summonable Monsters, because those are ones you really kind of have to worry about, because everyone's going to have them, really. If it's common, you assume your opponent has it, because it's more than likely they will. I mean, I remembered when I played the event, I ended up playing a pseudo Monarch build with an Ambitious Gopher, a Riser, a Kaya, I think a Riser, a Caius, and another Tribute Summonable Monster. No, a Dark Dust Spirit, a Riser, an Ambitious Gopher, and all of my kind of smaller monsters were floaters. I played 2 twin-headed behemoths, which are when they're destroyed, you can revive them in the end phase with half their attack and defense, so you can then tribute off for a Monarch in your next turn. I also played, I think he was called Level Warrior, or something to that nature. You could special summon him from your hand and his level became 2. You didn't really give a damn about that, you just specialed him and tributed him for a Monarch, or for your big monster. I then played Cyber Dragon, I believe I had 1 Cyber Dragon, and more Cyber Dragon based cards that just really, really assisted in the tribute summoning of monsters. Because something that I really realised going into it was the event plays a lot like sneak peeks. Have you ever been playing in a sneak peek where it's literally you summon a monster, kill theirs, they summon a monster, kill yours, you summon a monster and kill theirs, and eventually one player gets over a monster and then the opponent can't make a monster that's bigger than the other one. The other player summons a second monster and then it just becomes a system of kill, direct, kill, direct, kill, direct. And that is game. That is how the sneak peeks end up. And that's how I've realised a lot of the games panned out. At a sealed event, like it can end up the same way. It can end up with a system of your opponent gets 2 monsters on you, and you are in a horrible position until you get into a real good floater, like my Cyber Dragon plays, etc. So it's important to remember the fact that you really need to play heavily aggressive at these events, in my experience, and really constantly try and push over your opponent's monsters and get them right off the field. Because yes, your opponent can be setting Card Troopers, they can be setting Raikos, there is a Raiko in the set, they can be setting all sorts of things like that, Night Assailant. Yes, you do have to worry about that, but at the same time, don't be too afraid of that, because ultimately that Night Assailant is going to flip face up, that Raiko is going to flip face up next turn, kill one of your cards anyway, likely the monster that you've set in defense. Then they're going to have that access to tribute that off for a bigger guy, which you're then going to have a horrible time getting over unless you get your Cyber Dragon guy and get your way over it, or get your Raiko. So you really, really need to concentrate on every turn beating over whatever they put in front of you. But at the same time, you really need to be aware of what traps there are and kind of how you're going to be able to play around those traps should they be sprung on you. Ultimately, I found that the YCS does, in essence, come down to a luck-based thing, because there were some matches which I played, which were, regardless of skill, really one-sided, because I mean there were some situations where my opponent would just go, yeah, I got a Frog Monarch deck, or yeah, I have these really good cards which you don't have. So it's really quite tough to say how ideally to get over stuff, but I can only really give you recommendations, and I really can only hope that helps. So, I mean, in review of everything that I've said, you really need to be looking into the set so you can work out what your opponent may have and whether it's safe to make your play. I know that I've just spent 9 minutes saying the same thing over and over, but I really wanted to kind of drive my experiences home. So in light of the things that I've said, how can you best prepare yourself for an event? And the best way I can say is practice. Practice, practice, practice. Basically, everyone who topped the YCS basically had been practicing. Battle Pack boxes are relatively cheap right now. I know that I've really kind of just made the sin of telling people to pay money for practicing, But you don't have to buy a battle pack box and split it amongst your friends. There are other systems, like I think Waffles on YouTube posted a video saying how to construct draft on Dueling Network. It'll randomly generate you an algorithm for a sealed deck on Dueling Network, or a sealed pool, and you can make a deck from that sealed pool. And those are really good ways to test. If you can get some buddies, maybe construct an elimination tournament, or a top 8, or a little top 8 Swiss tournament amongst you and your friends, and you each use a card pool and you make a sealed deck. I mean, there's a trust element. You know, if someone cheats, they cheat, I'm afraid. Like, don't have a prize, just play for practice. And if you test under that battle pack environment, and if you do that, only that up until the event, you do not play constructed until the event, it will completely wipe your mind of all your constructed meta preconceptions, like the worries about Solemn Warning, etc., etc., things that just aren't in the set. Your mind will become adapted to the meta for the battle pack situation, and you'll be better prepared for what you're going to be running into ultimately. So that's kind of the recommendation I can give you. Practice and know your meta, and of course, really play as well as you can. The last recommendation I can give you is know your rulings. On the bubble at the YCS, I attribute my loss to a ruling issue. I had a face-down Snowman Eater. I believe it was Snowman Eater. My opponent had a Garp the Divine Soldier, which we're going to look at on here for a second, because, to be fair, you guys have probably never heard of Garp the Divine Soldier. If I can get it to focus. That's Garp the Divine Soldier, if you can see him. His effect reads, all monsters are changed to face-up attack position, and their battle positions cannot be changed. Flip effects are not activated. Once per turn, you can reveal any number of Fiend-type monsters in your hand. This card gains 300 attack for each until the end phase. Now, you can probably see where this is going. If I can bring the tripod back over here. Basically, I have my Snowman Eater. And of course, in setting the Snowman Eater, I have been passive for a turn. In being passive for the turn, it's of course allowed my opponent to have a monster on the field for the turn. They've then tributed it, summoned Garp. They've then activated Garp's effect upon his summon to flip my Snowman Eater face up. Now, when he does this, I have a momentary lapse in my sharking instinct. I become a nice guy for the first time I ever have at a major event. Because normally at major events I'm not the nicest of persons. I don't take my opponent's rulings for granted. And I flip my Snowman Eater face up and I go, activate effect. My opponent goes, no, the effect doesn't activate, flip effects are not activated this time. And for a split second I allow it. And we play the game and I lose. That was game 2. I was 1-up and I lost game 2. Game 3? Yeah, basically if that effect had gone off I would have won. Sorry, I'm trying to remember how this went. If that effect had gone off, I would have won. Simple as. We then went into game 3 and the same thing happened again. I had my Snowman Eater face down, he tribute summons Garp, activates its effect. And then my sharking instinct is back because I've just, of course, had a defeat. I'm now hanging on the edge of dropping out of the tournament. And as a judge is passing by, I call the judge over and I ask him, is its effect negated because it flips face up? Because at this point, I then look at it and reason, it's not flip. You know, like on Raikou it says flip. It's not flip, it is when this card is flipped face up. It's a condition of its effect, not an effect type. And the judge reasons the same thing as me. The judge says, it isn't a flip effect, it is a when this card is flipped face up, it is a condition. And I'm told that it can activate its effect and destroy the monster. If I had made the judge call in game 2, I would have won that and I would have day 2'd. Admittedly on X2, so I doubt I would have topped because I would have had to win 3 games in a row. But it was more the fact that I then lost that game on that fact. So the main kind of thing that I can really enforce on you guys is know your rulings going into the event, because I lost on that matter. You really need to examine every kind of mechanic your opponent is enforcing on you. Every time they make a play, examine both the cards and make sure that that is the way it would resolve, because there are some quite odd cards in the set which you won't have experienced in the meta. There are some real situations which you will never have experienced because there's no reason you should have. They were bad cards in the constructed meta. So that is why I kind of want to draw back to practice under a sealed environment, because if you practice under a sealed environment, you're going to run into these issues and you're going to resolve them. Play with a judge present. Play at a locals with your locals judge and ask him questions about ruling mechanics, because sometimes it's just going to be really, really weird stuff that's really going to catch you off guard. So yeah, ultimately I think that's everything I wanted to talk about on YCS San Diego. I know it was kind of vague. I haven't really given that many examples except for my own personal kind of accounts. But ultimately, really look into the meta, understand what your opponent could be setting, what they have access to. Remember that the Mirror Forces are rare, so it's not that likely they're going to have the Mirror Force, but Magic Cylinder, maybe that's a bit more of a chance. So remember guys, be prepared, and as always, this has been Jamie the Kid 00, and I'll see you guys next time with some more content. If you have any more questions on Steel Play YCSs, please feel free to put them in a link down in the comment section down below. And if you want me to do a video on like what Steel Play YCSs are like how they actually administrated it at YCS Sheffield, please post that down below and ask me to do that video. Otherwise, this has been Jamie the Kid 00, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out. Bye.